Okay, today we're just going to start with the quick word on the Parsha of Terumah. The question is, what is the connection between the Parsha of Terumah and Mishpatim? This week's Parsha is Terumah. Is there any sort of connection? And what would that connection be? So there's a very nice Beis Halevi in the beginning of the Parsha. He explains like this. A person is only allowed to give tzedakah if his money was legitimately earned. If it was earned through incorrect practices, such as stealing and other forms of theft, then that money cannot be used for charity. Someone told me that one of the shuls in the area over here in the past, someone donated $180,000, and they found out after that it was straight up stolen. They returned it. They said, "You can take your money. We're not interested." That's exactly what the Trumas Hadeshin over here is saying. That's why Mishpatim has to be first. Mishpatim talks about the halachos. What are the laws? You can't steal. What happens? You become an eved. You're a slave, right? As opposed to doing it the right way. That's basically what he says. As a side point, there's a whole piece that Rabbi Galinsky has. And a lot of people talk about this. The whole prison system and everything is, most cases, these guys who get released from prison, they're set up a failure for their lives. They become worse criminals, and it's basically a gathering of all of the criminals together, and then they learn how to become worse criminals. So what the Torah says is, no, if you stole, you now become a slave, and someone basically buys you, and you work for 6 years, basically, depends, of course, when Shemitah falls out and everything, and you turn into a slave, and the halacha is that if there's only one pillow, the slave gets it. And if there's good flour and bad flour, good bread, bad bread, slave gets it. In other words, the slave starts saying, wow, look at how much is being invested into me. I have to live up to my potential. And he starts growing and he starts becoming part of society again. And he starts helping out on the farm or whatever it is back then. So you see the opposite between how we believe in the justice system and how it really is. But that's another discussion. Anyways, the Beis Halevi over there continues and he says like this, that if a fly is in a closet, right? There's a huge piece of sugar and the fly lands on the sugar. Now the fly is going to feast away, but does the fly think that he owns the sugar? Of course not. Let's say someone moves that block of sugar somewhere else. What's going to happen to the fly? Right? My answer is he's not going to have sugar. It's the same thing with the person's money in this world. That a lot of times people think, oh, it's my money, this, that. Like someone said, what do you mean? I can't lose my money. I've been invested in multiple real estate investments. I have a portfolio of stocks. I have precious metals that I own, gold. I got Bitcoin. I've got my money's diversified all over the place. How could I lose my money? I said, very simple. Hashem kills you. You lose it. You want to squat, right? So the fly, just like the fly, the money doesn't belong to him. So then, so too, we have to realize that what? Then our money doesn't really belong to us. It's just you're on deposit, so to say. That's what we have to realize. That's what we have to realize, and that's why it says "Vayichu li truma." Why does it say "take from me truma"? Why doesn't it say "give"? It should say you're giving the truma. You're giving the charity. Why does it say "take"? The answer is one answer is that when a person gives money to someone who needs it, he's really going to get back. The word noson, which in Hebrew, of course, means to give, is a palindrome. If you flip the word around, it means it's the same word, give, because the more you give, the more you get. Based on the Gemara in Tainis Daf Ches, Torah in the beginning of Hilchos Tzedakah, not only will it not detract from a person's money, but on the contrary, it will add to his money. You know what atbash is? Okay, so take the atbash of tzedakah. What do you get? If you do the atbash of tzedakah, aleph is tough, beis is shin, you get tzedakah. Same exact letter. Do the math. You don't need to be a mathematician for that one. And what? So you see that when you give tzedakah, you get back. I saw that in the Sefer Me'il tzedakah around Os Pei over there. Anyways, so yeah, he brought that down with that, but he has a slightly different twist to it. But that was my twist. Anyways, the point is that what? That the stuck has to be serious. I just want to share one interesting shaila. People might not be realized. Person, let's just say He was responsible. He invested properly. He put aside money every single month or a couple of weeks for his retirement funds, and he was responsible with his decision making. At the end of his life, he has $10 million. What should he do with that $10 million? Give it all away? How does he distribute that? What does the Torah want of him? So, this recently, someone asked this question based on a sugi he was learning in Beis Medrash, and it was a whole tumult. And there were actually a few very chashuv people there. And Rabbanim, they were young, so they don't really deal with these shilas. And even older Rabbanim, it's a very specific field. Choshen Mishpat, you have to be an expert with, and you have to know money also. So there are very few people who know about this topic. Akopanim, I looked into it a little bit. It's explicitly brought down sugyas in the Gemara. If you take a look at Simin Reish Pei Beis in Choshen Mishpat, it's actually a very short simin over there. The Shulchan Aruch brings, based on the Gemara, that if a person has yorshim, which means inheritors, doesn't have to mean children, it could mean other people who would now really get first dibs on your money. And we know that we have secular laws also of who gets the money if it's not specified. That's why a person has to make a will, which we discussed back in, what was it, Parshas Vayechi or something? I think we discussed it over there. Yeah. I think we discussed it over there, back in Parshas Vayechi. And a person has to make a will, and so that to know where his money's going. But the point is that what? So now it says over there in Shulchan Aruch that the money basically has to go to the inheritors. Now, not all of it. What now? Let's say it doesn't go to the inheritors. Let's say a person says, my children aren't following in the ways that I wanted them to follow in, so I'm not going to give them money. I'm not going to give them any of my money that I have. So the Shulchan Aruch says, Ein ruach shel chachamim noichi himenu, which means that the rabbis aren't happy about that. If you just give away all your money and don't give it to your inheritors, even if your inheritors aren't following in the ways that you want them to follow. That's what it says over there in Shulchan Aruch. So you see that what inheritors get. The question is, what's the allocation? We're talking 10 million. How do you allocate that? So we see that you have to give your inheritors, but the question is, how much? So there is a Gemara in Ksubas, if I'm not mistaken, Daf Nun. Be'usha hiskinu, it's passed in this way. Tor Shulchan Aruch, Hilchos Salcha, if I'm not mistaken, Simin Reish Mem Tes. Be'usha hiskinu hamavazvez al yavazvez yosim mechaimish. That if you're gonna give tzedakah, you're gonna give money for charity, you don't give more than 20%. It's a percentage. It depends. It doesn't matter if you got 1 million, 1 billion. If you have 10,000, you give 1%. You're making 100,000 a year, you give 10,000. You're making 50,000 a year, you give 5,000. It's a percentage, right? So, but it says that the Ramah brings that at the end of your life, you could give everything you have. So how can we reconcile that Ramah with what it says in Choshen Mishpat?
Does he suggest it, or he just say?
Yeah, no, he says if you want, you give everything you have, and it's a nice idea. You give it for a charity over there, for a good cause. Not like these crazy causes that people are donating money for all these random things that don't matter. You give it for a good cause that matters. Yeah, that's what it seems like. So the Sefer Imre Yaakov on Choshen Mishpat, he picks up on this question over here, and he addresses this with some length. And basically what he says in a nutshell is, no, it's not a contradiction. When it says you have to give your inheritors, that's talking about Kedei Srochav, Kedei Chayev, what they need to live on. You have to give them a little bit. If you have $10 million, you got to give them something so that they can put food on the table, so that they can live. However, the Ramah, when he says you give away everything you got and you're not capped at the 20%, even if you're not very wealthy. If you're very wealthy, even when you're alive, you give more than 20%. And you should give more than 20%. However, after a person passes, so then you don't have that cap at 20%, even if you were average, so to say. Even if you have 8 million, 10 million, whatever it is. So then you could give more, but you have to give your children first. They say, I think that by Warren Buffett, he's worth like $150 billion. I think he's one of the top 10 wealthiest in the world. Yeah. I think they said he's going to be giving away less than 1% to his children.
Plus 1% is like $1 billion.
Okay, now that's still a lot of money. It's more than $1 billion. But you see that he's giving away the 99%. That's what you see from that, right? That's what you call chasidi umas olam. He's a righteous person who is from the other nations of the world.
The question is, what's he giving it?
Okay, fine. That's already another question. Where to allocate it to, and are they okay? That's already another question. But the point is anyway. So that's the idea with truma. Vayichu li truma. When we give charity, we're really giving to ourselves. We're helping ourselves. We're making a better people, because the money doesn't go with us to the next world. But what we give for charity, that will certainly go with us. That was an important point.